It's another week, another meeting, and I'm happy to be back with our full board today. We've got Elite, we've got Lewis, we have Robbie, Nico, and Jeff. And until we fill the position of secretary, this is all of us, full house today. Excellent. So we're going to do a quick overview of the agenda. We're going to talk about the secretary. We're going to talk about um, attendance and accountability. We're not going to make any decisions, but today is just our initial discussion about it, and Robbie's going to lead that. And just general updates. The chairperson's report, which I'm going to go into next, is going to be updates about our upcoming live streams. Sorry, they're not live stream. I wrote live stream, but Ripple will not be a live stream. What do we call it? A podcast?
Yeah.
Are
Yes,
they
podcast.
okay? So Ripple podcast will be coming up soon. We're going to start recording our first sessions, and I am doing the finishing touches on a database. So just like this centralized area where you can preview the topics we're going to talk about, preview the guests, just like a centralized hub, make comments and stuff like that. And then also I wanted to talk about our beach cleanup, which was such a I'm not surprising, but a wonderful success. We had our biggest cleanup to date this Sunday. And we had, I think, maybe 8 or 9 divers in the water, and then a few folks out doing the shore part of the cleanup. And it went really smoothly. It went smoother than we had with like 3 people in the past, just because by now we've done it enough times. We had Robbie and Elon and myself on the shore doing like shore stuff, handing out equipment, doing attendance. We had another volunteer show up, Kevin, who also just is a dive master and started helping out as well. And then we had somebody in the water. So I think it's time that we start writing down our best practices and start templatizing it and creating that kit that we talked about, a cleanup kit. And I think that that would be something that would be Jeff's committee. I know we're just starting our committee work right now, but I think that Jeff's committee would be the one to gather our best practices for cleanups and community pools, because that's the community committee. And so really we're just coming up with best practices so that folks around the world can, oh, here's a PDF with a cleanup kit and best practices, so they can start learning from us and everything we did. So, Robbie, do you want to comment on the cleanup? Any news from?
It was good. A lot of people came. That's the good thing about it. Hopefully next time that dive club that happened to be there will actually join.
Yeah. There's the Long Island Divers Dive Club came by. It's headed by Barry Lipsky, but he wasn't there, but it's like his folks. And I think that these things are all interrelated, right? So we're going to have the community committee creating the template for the cleanups and best practices and recording best practices. Meanwhile, the change committee, which now we have Chris Wessif, he came to our cleanup. That change committee is also concerned with preserving public access to Beach 8th Street. So there's just it's cleanups, but we've got multiple committees that it's affecting and that are in charge of different pieces of it. So, okay, let's move on. I'm going to check if there's any other reports from our other directors. No. Okay. As far as the hunt for the new secretary, I did see our first application come in. It's exciting. It was like a full application with a resume, and somebody seemed very talented. And I don't know. It's exciting stuff. And I have not published our flyer as much as I would like to. I'm going to have to do that today. But somebody applied, and it's exciting. I will make sure that all 6 of us, I'm going to post it maybe in our executive board Slack. I'm going to post all of the applications that come in so that we can review them and have comments in the threads. Yeah. All right. And then I'm going to give the floor to Robbie. Robbie is going to talk about, again, all these committees are new, so we still don't have like a template of what community work looks like, but since Robbie is the chair of the review committee, Robbie is going to lead the discussion about attendance and responsibilities and just like how we can maximize accountability, but while making sure everybody's still enthusiastically participating to the extent that they are able to in a sustainable way.
One of the things that I'm suggesting is actually come up with a table, like a chart of everyone's name, their positions, and if they actually miss a meeting or not on that day, they could have a reason because it's okay. Um, and just keep track of it for every quarter to 2 quarters and like review it. Like if we're actually hitting, like, are we coming to the meetings enough? Are we skipping a lot of it? What's the reasons behind it and how to like fix those things.
Okay. I think that when we talk about missing a meeting, I think we should talk about which meetings, and I think that the meetings should have different priorities and different ways to participate, right? So we have these weekly sessions, um, committees, and we have our monthly general meetings, which probably should be a higher priority. And then also, I know that last week, I think Galit and Robbie or somebody wasn't able to participate, but I know that they watched it and maybe commented after, and I was cool with that as long as folks had, you know, as long as you kept up to date with what was going on, right? So, what do you guys think about that? What do you guys think about having different levels of priorities or expectations around these meetings and ways to participate?
I'm fine with that, Nicole.
Galit?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea because just we understanding that we all are volunteers and we all have lives and commitments and appointments that come up. I think definitely making certain meetings a priority, especially meetings that have like votes attached to them, is important. And then also, I love the idea of it being live streamed and then, being able to go back and watch the meeting because I couldn't be there last week, but I did go back and watch the meeting just so I knew what happened and it felt like I was there. So even though I wasn't a part of the actual conversation, I got to feel like I was still I still knew what was happening. But I also understand if people don't necessarily have the time to go back and watch a whole meeting. So, you know, I feel like, yes, it's important to have some meetings that are more priority and as a general rule, try to, attend as many as we can.
Yeah. So I like what Robbie said about keeping attendance and having a chart. I think that can be accomplished very easily via Airtable. I could just start. I'm gonna look back on our 6 meetings and just
If
mark it off.
If somebody watches and comments on the meeting, should that take away the tardiness from that person
I think so. I think if
or the absence?
I'll chime in, but I also don't want to dominate the discussion. But I think that I'm fine as long as the folks that are expected to be at the meeting are updated, and so that at the next meeting we don't have to repeat questions or anything. I think that there's a benefit to live participation. Obviously, you get a bigger say, you get to affect the conversation in real time, and that's like a benefit. You get to bring your face and to the meeting. But I think that as long as somebody watches the replay and maybe comments on it, I'm fine with that. I do think that you should be updated, but you could like play it while washing the dishes or something. We can also have transcribed notes sent out afterwards, and just all directors mark off that they've read them or something.
For the voting decisions, just so I could keep track, during the vote, so like the person like missed that particular meeting and there was like a vote, can they have a certain time frame after their meeting to make that vote also?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I want to outsource that to Jeff.
If I could jump in here a little bit, I guess my first question is: are we having too many meetings? Are we having enough meetings? And are our meetings being really as effective as they could be? Getting together every week, it seems like a lot, but maybe it's not enough. I'm just kind of tossing it out there. And also going back to Robbie's question, is one of my concerns that we have here now is we really have the cart in front of the horse. When you're having votes, well, you have to establish a quorum. There's a lot that goes in. We have a lot of our structure is simply not in place yet.
In regards to that, tomorrow I am meeting with our lawyer. So if there's any last comments to make on those bylaws, tomorrow I'm meeting in person to finalize everything. So if you have on that bylaws document, if there's any questions like that, for having an official structure, now is the last bell to make sure that your perspectives reflected before our lawyer finalizes our bylaws document.
Well, they finally get Slack put onto my PC so I can get it big enough I can read it.
As far as Jeff's question about meeting frequency, I would like to hear from from you guys. I know how I feel, but I want to see what you guys think. And this is one of those things that I am going to call on you, because I do want to get at least like an affirmative or negative out of you. So Galit,
Well,
I'm just going to Nico.
Oh, Nico, go for it.
We'll take volunteers first.
I was just going to say I have voiced it before that I think that we have too many meetings, and that can make it challenging, I think, for everybody to make every meeting. And I am wary with a volunteer situation to keep track of attendance in such a strict way. I really, especially with my committee, I've already told people, I'm like, I want you to participate in the ways that you can, and not have this expectation that you're going to get kicked off or something like that if you can't make every meeting or do everything. So even for me, that feels a little weird, because like I've been at a lot of the meetings, but I'm like, I don't want to feel like if I have to miss 2 meetings in a row, I have to have a sit-down conversation about my commitment.
Oh.
You're not having that with me.
Well, I'm just saying that's
Yeah.
what I feel comes up when I hear, oh, we're going to keep a chart of attendance and we're going to have explanations and accountability for every time we might be a little bit late or miss a meeting. And that just feels, I don't know, feels a little weird to me. So that's kind of where I'm sitting right now.
Okay.
Maybe we keep that for the
Nicole,
monthly.
can I answer that real quick?
Yeah, please.
Nico, like keeping track is not to like have anyone in trouble. It's just so we could like optimize like timing and everything else for like the people that are there. Because if someone has like a consistent like, oh, I'm bringing my daughter back home from school or something like that, we could just like, oh, change the meeting time, see what's going on, just to like optimize so it could benefit everyone instead of like someone getting in trouble.
I like so I like the idea of knowing what's going on with people and why they can or can't participate. I like what Nico is saying about the pressures of a nonprofit. Just the pressures to participate and, oh no, am I going to get in trouble? I maybe for that reason, the monthly meetings should be mandatory, or in the monthly general meetings, we should have attendance and roll call and expectations of the directors who are like officially elected directors. And that's also not meant to be punitive, but just can help maybe inform elections next time. I don't know. What do you guys think? I wanted to say about the frequency of these weekly meetings. I personally have benefited greatly from them being short and sweet and frequent. I think I prefer that over long meetings that are infrequent, just because it just keeps us seeing each other, and it's like a heartbeat. That's just my view.
I just want to jump in and say that I understand your point when you say it like that, Robbie. And so that I think is about how you frame it. Because I think, as we all know, intent is different than impact. So when you first said that without framing it that way, that was immediately how I felt about it. So I'm just trying to reflect how our members or people who are involved in the organization might feel about it. Because if I'm feeling that way, somebody else probably is. So
Okay.
I think we just need to be really thoughtful about how we phrase or talk about like an attendance requirement. Because if we're doing it about a people first, like we want to just make sure it's working for everybody and work with you to figure out how to better suit everybody, fine. But it came off to me as a little bit more of like I'm going to get in trouble sort of thing.
Okay, I need like a friendlier way of saying it.
Well, when it comes to meetings, I agree. A focused meeting is better than long, drawn-out ones. As the saying goes, the brain will only absorb what the butt will endure. So really, if your meeting's going to be going over 45 minutes, you really have to have a reason for it. And as Mark Cuban would say too, is could this meeting have been an email?
Mm-hmm.
So again, I think the meetings are good, keeping things fresh, keeping people involved. I would just try to, stay focused on the meeting. If there's something that could have just been an email, let's use that. Use our digital tools as best we can. I'm sure in Slack there are quite a lot of tools like it. Now we used to use a thing called Basecamp, and it was that same kind of thing. So you set up, each committee had its own little folder. You held meetings in there, and then that was always accessible, and it was also saved. So next year, if someone's not around and there's a new committee member or committee leader, they can, open up that binder, if you will, and see all the information that's in there, all the templates, all the stuff to do. So a way of saving and archiving everything. I guess Slack as well or something similar.
I love the phrase, could this meeting have been an email? And I also hate meetings that could have been emails. That being said, I still think that there is great value in face-to-face time.
Oh, yeah.
And also not only face-to-face time, but these regular and expected live streams. Since we're doing live streams, a live stream is a chance for others to get involved. I'm hoping that, when we have the change committee down the line, there will be maybe a weekly live stream, and it's maybe 15 to 30 minutes. It's not always the same people leading it, but it's a chance to get some face-to-face time and get active participation on a project that's open to the public, right? Because not everybody is inside our Slack channels. And I don't really want to, I love the efficiency of Slack channels, but I wouldn't want something to entirely be taking place in a Slack channel without the human face-to-face interaction and component. And I will start cutting these off at half an hour so that, they're short and sweet. So let's try to summarize what our findings are.
So
yeah, Scully.
I'm just thinking, what if we had maybe a minimum attendance, right? Instead of you have to attend every meeting, but maybe there was a minimum attendance of once a month or something like that, as that, in order to be on the board, we need to hear your voice. And I understand that. And I also understand people's lives. And so I feel maybe putting in this is the minimum, anything above that, amazing. We appreciate if you stay updated and watch the videos, but I'm not going to go and force anyone to do that because we all have lives. But just saying this is the minimum expectation for a board member. And I'm talking about directors and not necessarily that people that are, volunteers or on committees, because the committee should have their own separate schedules and, but for, the directors and the heads of the committees, we should have at least a minimum.
I like the distinction between board. I like establishing that board, the directors do have some kind of responsibility to the organization, and separating and saying that volunteers don't share the same requirement. I also like some kind of minimum participation rate, and maybe it's not necessarily that you have to be on a live stream, but maybe it's you have to be active in the Slack channel every so often. Our organization is a little bit different from NAUI. And NAUI, when people want to be parts of committees, there's a set number, 10 spots, let's say, and then you fight over and you set an application and committee members, then there is an expectation that the volunteers attend because they are taking somebody else's spot. Since we have this live stream format, it might be a little bit easier to not have an attendance requirement, or Slack, there's not an attendance requirement, as long as as people have a chance to participate. But I also, I don't want too many zombie lurkers that, create an account once upon a time, attended one meeting and got involved with the project, and then we never heard from them since. And if we upgraded a paid Slack plan or something, I don't know if that's going to be an issue. But what do you guys think about people like that who join our Slack chat? I don't know. I don't actually have a problem with people lurking, as long as it doesn't incur extra costs on our organization.
I'm in favor of lurking because not everyone has to be. They as long as they're logged in, but they don't have to actually be interacting necessarily, because it's okay to be AFK. I mean, you should know, Nicole, you are a fellow streamer. Just just as I am. Telling you from
Always AFK.
experience.
Yeah, but okay. So I wanted to ask one more question. Yeah, did you have something to say, Galit?
Nico.
Oh, I was just gonna say I agree with Lewis. I think that it's fine to have people lurking because you never know when people are going to be available or able to participate. And again, with my committee and the people that I've been recruiting, I've told them like, I want you to participate as you can because they might not be able to have the capacity right now, but maybe in 6 months, or maybe they'll have a really cool idea they can throw out to the group, but they don't have the time to really invest energy into making it happen. So I really think, especially with a volunteer, we want to have more people than less people. I think to your question around what should we do, I don't think we should worry about it right now. Kind of to when Jeff said it earlier, like putting the cart before the horse. We should see if those situations arise, then we can talk about them and figure out how to move forward. But I think most people that are going to get involved in an organization are going to do it from a point of good intentions and wanting to be involved and be engaged at some level. So I don't think we're going to have a lot of like problematic lurkers.
I don't know what a problematic lurker is. Well, it's only problematic if we're incurring expenses, and as long and I don't think we are. We only have, only if we're adding somebody to our Canva account over 50, and only if we have a paid Slack account, which we don't.
I meant somebody that is just showing up and like heckling on the Slack or like, not really participating in any sort of meaningful way, but just being a thorn. That's what I meant by problematic lurker.
Okay.
Well, a troll.
Yeah, exactly.
A troll. I also just wanted to ask, and those we can get rid of with moderation. We haven't, the last question, the last point I want to touch upon is a director's responsibility to their committee, and the projects that are associated with that committee. When that's something that is limited, right? Like at the end of every year, there will be an election where we want to check how good was this director in advancing the needs of that particular committee and serving in that role. So what kind of expectations should we have around that?
I mean, most nonprofits do like a yearly report. So it could be something like that where we have one meeting every year where we talk about the things that we've done over the last year and what we've accomplished. And I think that we can use that as a metric.
And the monthly ones probably, right? Like at every monthly, the directors should be expected to attend the monthly meetings unless there's an issue. Appoint somebody to attend in their absence to report on the committee. But that might be a good gauge, right? Well, we didn't do any work in this month, and not worth a punishment, maybe a talking to, but then maybe you just won't get reelected. Okay, so I think that was a productive discussion. Robbie, is there anything else that you wanted to say from just a review perspective?
The mediation, like make sure no one's trolling, that could be done by the review committee, like actually like going on it and checking and keeping track.
You guys can also moderate our live streams. That would be awesome. Would love that.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah. Okay. I think
Nicole, because of the fact I linked this to my own Twitch channel, I also have my own moderator to help me out.
Excellent.
Is that all right?
Yeah, that's wonderful. So in summary, to summarize this week's meeting, we talked about the secretary hunt. I'm going to post some more flyers today. And we did have, I think that was a productive discussion on attendance and accountability. It seems that we're all on the same page. Would you guys just generally feel, yeah, more or less? Okay. So I'll have some cool updates to share in the Slack once this Ripple podcast is done. and can't wait to have a secretary to help with some project management as well. So, okay,
Stinks
everybody
you don't
cool.
have Savannah anymore. It stinks you don't have Savannah no more.
Yeah, but you know what? We got some really awesome applications, and I can't wait for somebody to really get into that role and love what they're doing and do it well. So,
I
everybody
definitely
cool?
vote to adjourn. I definitely vote to adjourn.
All right, Robbie, Nico. Excellent. Robbie, you cool with adjourning? All right, everybody, this meeting is adjourned, and I will see you all next week. All right.